If you're over 70, you've probably noticed that your body doesn't always respond the way it used to. Things that once felt simple now take more effort. You may get tired more easily, feel weaker than expected, recover more slowly, or notice that even small health issues seem to affect you more than they used to. For many people, these changes can feel frustrating, confusing, and sometimes even a little frightening. You may wonder if what you're feeling is normal, if it's something to worry about, or if it's simply part of aging and something you have to accept. And one of the hardest parts is that nobody really explains what is normal, what is manageable, and what should never be ignored. Some of these changes are a natural part of aging, but many of them are not just about getting older. They're often connected to muscle loss, reduced activity, dehydration, poor sleep, medication side effects, low protein intake, untreated health conditions, and changes in how the body responds to stress, illness, and recovery. That matters because when you understand what's really happening, you're in a much better position to protect your health, maintain your independence, and avoid the slow decline that so many people assume is unavoidable. As senior nutrition expert, I've seen that one of the biggest advantages a person can have after 70 is not luck, and it's not perfect genetics. It's understanding. When people understand what their body is doing, they stop blaming everything on age and start making better decisions earlier. They begin to recognize warning signs sooner. They take weakness, appetite changes, poor sleep, and low energy more seriously. And often, that makes a bigger difference than people expect. In this video, I'm going to explain what really happens to your body after 70, why some of these changes seem to come out of nowhere, and what many people were never warned about until they were already dealing with the consequences. Before we begin, I want to clear up one of the biggest myths about aging. Your body is not simply falling apart because of your age. Yes, aging changes the body. That part is true. But many of the problems people blame on just getting older are actually made worse by preventable or manageable factors, like inactivity, undereating, weakness, medication problems, poor balance, untreated inflammation, poor sleep, stress, isolation, and not recognizing early warning signs. And that should actually encourage you. Because if these problems were only about age, there would be very little you could do. But that's not the full story. Many of these changes are influenced by habits, nutrition, movement, recovery, and timely medical attention. In other words, many of the things that happen after 70 are not completely out of your hands. I've seen two people who are the exact same age living very different lives. One is active, walking regularly, cooking meals, going out, enjoying family, staying involved, and handling daily life with confidence. The other feels weak, unsteady, tired, and overwhelmed by basic tasks. Chronological age explains some of that difference, but lifestyle, nourishment, sleep, muscle strength, hydration, attitude, and early intervention explain much more than most people realize. That's why understanding these changes matters so much. Change number 1, your muscles start disappearing faster than you think. If there is one change that deserves much more attention after 70, it's this one. The body naturally loses muscle with age, but after 70, that process often speeds up. And it can speed up even more if you're not moving enough, not eating enough protein, or spending too much time resting because of illness, pain, fatigue, or fear of falling. The problem is that muscle is about much more than looking strong. Muscle is what helps you get out of bed, rise from a chair, climb stairs, carry groceries, keep your balance, support your joints, and protect yourself when you stumble. Muscle is also one of the biggest foundations of independence. When muscle declines, life gets harder in quiet ways at first. You may notice you use your arms more to push yourself up. You may stop walking as far as you used to. You may begin to avoid stairs. You may feel less confident carrying things. You may avoid certain activities because they feel more tiring than before. And often, people don't realize how much strength they've lost until everyday tasks suddenly feel difficult. What surprises many people is how quickly this can happen. A short illness, several days in bed, a poor appetite, or even a couple of weeks of low activity can lead to visible weakness. That's one reason recovery after hospitalization can be so difficult for older adults. It's not always the illness alone. It's the muscle loss that comes with it. But here's the encouraging part. Even after 70, Muscle still responds to use. It responds to walking. It responds to strength training. It responds to better nourishment. It responds to consistency. It may not respond as quickly as it did decades ago, but it absolutely still responds. Change number 2. Your body's reserve tank gets smaller. When you're younger, your body usually has a larger cushion. You can miss sleep, skip meals, overdo it physically, deal with stress, or fight off a mild illness and bounce back without too much trouble. After 70, that cushion becomes smaller. That means the body has less room for error. A poor night's sleep can affect you more. Skipping meals can leave you shaky or drained. Dehydration can lead to weakness, dizziness, constipation, headaches, or confusion. A mild infection may cause much more fatigue than it once did. A hot day can affect you more quickly. Something that would have been a small problem years ago can hit much harder now. This doesn't mean you're fragile. It means your body has become less forgiving. And once people understand that, they often stop being so hard on themselves. They realize that needing more rest, more consistency, and better routines does not mean they are failing. It means their body now needs better support than it did before. One of the most important things to understand after 70 is that small disruptions can cause larger effects. If you get behind on hydration, nutrition, movement, or sleep, the body often lets you know much sooner than it used to. That's why staying ahead of problems becomes far more important than trying to catch up after the fact. Change number 3. Your appetite may decrease even when your nutritional needs remain high. This is one of the most overlooked changes after 70, and it causes more problems than people realize. Many older adults simply do not feel as hungry as they used to. Portions get smaller, meals get skipped, breakfast becomes coffee and toast, lunch gets delayed, dinner becomes lighter and lighter, and over time, the body quietly starts running on less than it needs. The challenge is that even though appetite may go down, the need for nutrition does not disappear. In fact, in many ways, good nutrition becomes even more important. The body still needs protein to maintain muscle. It still needs vitamins and minerals to support immunity, healing, energy, and brain function. It still needs fiber and fluids to support digestion and regularity. When people consistently eat too little, the effects often show up slowly. They may become weaker, more tired, less steady, more prone to illness, or slower to recover. They may also experience constipation, low mood, poor concentration, poor skin healing, or increased frailty, without ever connecting it back to what they are, or are not, eating. As senior nutrition expert, I've seen many older adults who are not eating poorly because they don't care. They're eating too little because their appetite changed, or because chewing became harder, or because food doesn't taste the same, or because they live alone and meals no longer feel enjoyable, or because medications affect appetite, digestion, or fullness. Sometimes they're too tired to cook. Sometimes they simply don't realize how little they're eating compared to what their body truly needs. Whatever the reason, the result can be the same. The body becomes underfueled at exactly the stage of life when it needs dependable nourishment the most. Change number 4. Your balance becomes more complicated than most people think. A lot of people assume balance is just about the inner ear, but balance actually depends on multiple systems working together. Your muscles, vision, feet, joints, nerves, posture, reaction time, and brain all contribute to how steady you feel. After 70, small changes can occur in many of these systems at the same time. Your legs may be a little weaker. Your eyesight may not be as sharp. Your feet may have some numbness. Your reflexes may be slower. Your posture may change. You may also be taking medications that affect blood pressure or alertness. Individually, these changes may seem minor, but together, they can make you feel much more unsteady. That's why balance changes should never be dismissed too casually. Feeling less steady is not always just old age. Sometimes it's a sign of weakness. Sometimes it's dehydration. Sometimes it's medication-related. Sometimes it's poor footwear, poor sleep, low blood pressure, poor nutrition, or a combination of several factors all working against you at once. And balance matters for a very simple reason. Once people become afraid of falling, they often move less. And once they move less, they get weaker. And once they get weaker, their balance gets even worse. That can become a very damaging cycle. The goal is not just to avoid falls. The goal is to protect the confidence that allows you to keep living your life, going where you want to go, and doing the things that make you feel like yourself. Change number 5. Recovery takes longer, and that can be deeply frustrating. This is one of the changes that catches many people by surprise. You may still recover after 70, but the timeline often changes. A cold can linger longer. A muscle strain can take weeks instead of days. A busy day out can leave you drained the next morning. A medical procedure may take more out of you than expected. Even emotional stress can affect the body more deeply and for longer. That slower recovery can feel discouraging if you compare yourself to who you used to be. Many people assume that if recovery is taking longer, something must be seriously wrong. Sometimes there is a medical reason to evaluate, but other times, the reality is simply that the body now needs more time, more rest, and more support than it once did. One mistake people make is pushing too hard too soon because they are impatient with the slower timeline. They want to bounce back quickly, so they overdo it before their body is ready. And instead of recovering faster, they set themselves back. Sometimes the wisest thing you can do after 70 is respect your recovery instead of fighting it. That does not mean becoming inactive. It means learning the difference between helpful effort and harmful overexertion. It means giving the body what it needs: rest, food, fluids, patience, and gradual movement, rather than demanding that it perform on yesterday's schedule. Change number 6. Your brain may feel slower, but slower does not always mean serious decline. This is an important point, because many people become frightened by normal changes in memory and processing. After 70, it can be common to take longer to remember a name, need more repetition when learning something new, or feel mentally slower when you're tired, stressed, or not feeling well. That is not automatically the same as dementia. Normal aging can involve slower processing speed. It can mean needing a little more time to retrieve information. It can mean becoming more easily distracted when too much is happening at once. But it does not automatically mean that serious disease is present. What matters is whether the change is interfering with daily functioning. Are you missing important medications? Getting lost in familiar places? Struggling to handle finances? Repeating the same questions constantly? Showing changes in judgment, language, safety awareness, or daily decision-making? Those are the kinds of changes that deserve prompt medical attention. The important thing is not to panic over every small lapse, but also not to dismiss meaningful decline. The earlier a genuine problem is identified, the more options there may be for support, planning, treatment, and safety. And it's also worth remembering that not all thinking changes are caused by dementia. Dehydration, infections, poor sleep, vitamin deficiencies, medication side effects, depression, loneliness, and untreated medical issues can all affect thinking and memory, especially in older adults. Change number 7. Your body becomes less forgiving of neglect. This is something many people notice but don't always know how to explain. Years ago, you might have been able to skip water, ignore sleep, eat very little, sit too much, push through illness, and still feel mostly okay. After 70, those same choices often lead to more obvious consequences. You may feel more drained after a day of poor eating. You may feel more constipated after not drinking enough. You may feel lightheaded when you stand up. You may find that one bad night of sleep affects your mood, your focus, your balance, and your energy the next day. This doesn't mean your body is weak. It means the cost of neglect is higher now. The body no longer hides the consequences as easily as it once did. And oddly enough, that can be a good thing. Because when the body becomes less forgiving, it also becomes more responsive to care. Better hydration helps more. Better meals help more. Better sleep helps more. Gentle movement helps more. Small improvements often go further than people expect because the body notices them more clearly now. Change number 8. The small habits you ignore now matter more than ever. This may be the most important truth of all. After 70, health is shaped less by dramatic decisions and more by daily consistency. Drinking enough water, eating enough protein, moving your body, taking medications correctly, getting enough sleep, staying socially connected, paying attention to bowel habits, keeping up with checkups, addressing small problems before they become big ones. None of these habits feels dramatic in the moment. That's exactly why people underestimate them. But after 70, small habits have a cumulative effect. Daily choices either support strength, energy, balance, digestion, mood, and independence, or they slowly weaken them. The change may not be obvious from one day to the next, but over months and years, those small habits often determine the direction of a person's life. That is what many people are never warned about. They expect one major illness to define aging, but more often, it's the slow accumulation of small neglected habits that changes everything. Not enough protein, not enough water, too much sitting, ignoring early weakness. Poor sleep, skipping meals, avoiding activity because of fear, delaying medical attention, letting loneliness go unaddressed, assuming nothing can be done. These things may seem small on their own, but together, they create the kind of decline people often assume came out of nowhere. Here's the bottom line. Your body after 70 is different, but different does not mean doomed. Some changes are inevitable, many are manageable, and quite a few can be slowed when you pay attention early. Nourish the body properly, stay physically active, and stop assuming every symptom is just age. As senior nutrition expert, one thing I've learned is that the people who often age best are not the people with perfect bodies or perfect health histories. They're the people who stay engaged. They notice changes early, they ask questions, they make adjustments, they stop ignoring the basics, and they keep supporting their bodies instead of giving up on them. So if you've been noticing changes in your strength, energy, appetite, balance, memory, or recovery, do not ignore them, and do not assume that nothing can be done. Sometimes your body is not asking you to surrender. Sometimes it's simply asking for more support, more consistency, and more care than it needed before. And that's not weakness, that's wisdom. Because the truth is, after 70, the people who do best are often not the ones trying to live like they're 40. They're the ones who understand what their body needs now and respond accordingly. They respect the changes without giving up. They adapt without losing hope. And they build health the same way they built everything else in life, one smart decision at a time. And I'd love to hear from you. What change did nobody warn you about after 70? Share it in the comments, because chances are someone else has noticed the same thing and has been wondering if they're alone. See you in the